Over the past 15 years, I have worked as a strategist across public and private sectors, and across all of these very different clients, I keep hearing the same piece of advice being thrown around again and again. Just do it. Just go for it. But throughout my practice, I have seen how exactly this advice, when taken out of context, can lead to wasted resources and even some catastrophic ends for businesses in some cases. In this video, I'll explain how this advice can cause damage in your business, when it genuinely helps, and how it should actually be applied to turn empty actions into actual progress. Let's go. First of all, it oversimplifies the complexity of your situation regardless of your context. And at its core, it says just go ahead and you will figure it out as you go along. Secondly, it implies that any action is better than no action at all, and as long as you are moving, you are good. And thirdly, it creates a false sense of hierarchy where doing something or constantly doing something is seen as brave and productive, and then pausing to think and to regroup is framed as weak. However, the problem is that action without direction doesn't lead to progress. It simply leads to movement, and movement is not the same thing as progress. Let's imagine the scenario where you are going to build a house. No one is going to tell you, oh, just go for it, right? You're going to think about where you are going to put your foundations, where the walls are going to be, where the rooms are going to be, and then you are going to start pouring the concrete and building up the walls, etc. Clearly, there is a phase or there is a time for thinking and planning and measuring, and that then naturally leads to action, which is going to implement the plans, the actions, the frameworks, and so on. So as you can see, action without direction leads to wasted resources. And oftentimes, figuring it out as you go along doesn't work or doesn't even apply in some situations, such as many times in business. Now that we have established that only by directing our actions we can make sure that our effort translates into the desired outcomes, how do we do that? How do we know when to ignore this advice, just do it, just go for it, you will figure it out, and when it belongs to us, when it actually can be beneficial? I call this process the evolution of progress, because that's what we all want, right? We want to make progress in our business. So how does progress evolve? First of all, you're going to start by collecting information about your business idea or your business situation. This might look differently for different businesses and different states of your business, but this could look like, for example, you performing your market research, your competitor analysis, you understanding what problem would your product or solution, your business be solving. Does this problem even exist? Is there a desire to fix this problem? Because contrary to some opinions, not every problem needs to be solved. Is there a desire to pay? What are your competitors doing? What other solutions exist? What is your unique value proposition? How are you going to differentiate yourself? Now, you collect your information until two things happen. First one is you stop learning something new. So every new piece of information that you are gathering is just confirming what you already know. You have managed to turn the information, the data that you have collected, into useful information, and you've wrapped your head around it. And the second thing is where the next step, the next action you have to do is clear. It's obvious, it's right in front of you. Now, this is the point where the just do it, just go for it advice belongs. It is the moment when you know what you have to do, and it is supported by your thorough understanding of your situation, of your context, of your target audience, and so on. But the reason why you are not moving on to the action part of things, right, to integrate your learnings, is because of your nerves, your self-doubt, perhaps you've had a bad experience in business. This is where the just do it, just go for it, you'll figure it out as you go along. This is where the advice belongs, because it will help you progress through actually helping you learn through doing, because that's a whole different type of knowledge and information that you can gather only through the experience. It's not to disregard all the different information that you have learned up to this point. It is really to build on it and be able to execute on it, to learn some more, to progress. Now, this stage can look differently for different people. For some, this can look like building a website. For others, this can look like building a prototype and testing it with a target audience. So looks differently for different people, for different situations. The main takeaway is that you're going to learn something and you're going to take it back to what you have learned, back to the strategy, the approach that you have developed through your learning, through your research, through your analysis, and you're going to refine it. You're going to say, okay, what is this telling me? Do I have to change my product or service design? Do I have to change the prototype? Do I have to change the way that I deliver the value? What is this learning that I have gathered from doing telling me? So you take it back to your drawing board and you integrate that knowledge. Now, what happens in every business is that at some point you get to the stage where you stop differentiating between different types of different sources of knowledge. So obviously you cannot stop running a business every time you get a client feedback. So at this point, you are learning as you are going and you are integrating as you are going. Now, at this stage, the next step that you need to take is very obvious and clear. Making decisions is very easy. So in other words, you are supporting your actions by knowledge and thorough understanding of your environment, your target audience, your niche, your product. You understand how your business is running, how it is structured, how it is operating within that structure. You have a thorough understanding of what is happening, and that is allowing you and enabling you to make very confident decisions, as I said, in terms of what belongs to you, what doesn't belong to you, what the next step should be, and so on. Now, what is important to understand is that every single business, regardless of its size, background, every single business will get to the point in their business journey where this is no longer the case. There is no longer an obvious next step. Decision making becomes somewhat heavier, a bit more confusing. Things are not as clear as they used to be. And so as a business owner, you might be a little bit taken aback because you were in that previous state for so long that this becomes shocking. Some businesses arrive here sooner, some later, but nevertheless, every single business at some point during their business journey will arrive here. Now, the reason for it is actually very simple. So our businesses are set out to support the people, right? Address their needs, their wants, their pains, and so on. However, people with their wants and their needs, they evolve, right? People evolve, the world evolves, technology evolves, people's needs evolve, and so on. In other words, the landscape or the ecosystem within which your business operates and within which you operate has changed. And this is the point where this just do it advice at its core value, as I explained at the beginning, can be truly catastrophic for your business. At this point, what you should really do is to slow down, just the pace, to be able to find your footing again, understand what is happening around you, understand your context, your ecosystem, the landscape within which you operate, so you can regain the visibility to get back to that stage of making your decision more confidently, clearly, easier, and so on. The worst thing that you can do right now is to pursue any action just for the sake of continuing to move, without a thorough understanding of your situation, of the thorough understanding of that landscape. But that unfortunately is exactly what people do, because they have been in that integrated mode where they were not even realizing how they were making the decisions, but they were. The business was working, they were able to address any problem, they were able to make a decision very easy. They were operating in this flow so long that they are no longer used to making those bigger pauses as we were doing at the beginning, right? When we were differentiating between different sources of information. So this could for some people be such a long time that it no longer comes natural to them. What comes natural is action and another action, and just try something different and try something new. But suddenly it's not working how it used to before. And actually my work and this whole channel are predominantly dedicated to helping businesses getting themselves out of this situation, because it is not an easy task. And that's why when you are in this situation, in this state, and you hear this advice, oh, just do it, or just go for it, or you will figure it out, etc., it is extremely frustrating because it is not easy. It is doable, but the just do it, just going for another solution and just trying another fix is not going to do it. In my practice, in my opinion, there are two main reasons. The first one is that people might not realize how much preparation they have actually done. So you hear people saying all the time, oh, I just opened this business, I just had this idea and I just went for it, and you should do it too, you're overthinking it, and so on. And what happens is that we don't know what the background of the person was. We don't know what previous work experience they had. We don't know whether they grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. And so what we don't know is what they take for granted. So there could be some parts of the pre-work, business planning and forecasting and thinking about the value delivery and about the target audience and so on, that they are thinking about, but they are just not communicating it to you. So what they say to you is, oh, I just did it. but they are maybe not given enough value or attention to the other things that made them successful, and so they are not able to communicate that to you. So when someone next time tells you, oh, I just did it, I just went for it, while we don't know what their background was or what they actually did, what we do know with 100% certainty is that there was some sort of prep work done. In this situation, what you can do is to prop and to ask them questions. So when you start asking them basic questions about their target audience and their understanding of them, and why they positioned their boutique where they did, for example, in case of a boutique business, you would be very surprised how quickly they are going to say, oh yes, of course, because I have worked in a similar business before and I saw how they were doing it when they were expanding. Or you would hear them say, oh, but of course I did that, but I mean, that goes without saying. The second thing, or the second reason why you get this advice thrown around is about personal preferences and personal relations to risk aversion. So if we go back to what I was saying about collecting information, there are people who would start learning about their business idea. They start doing some basic market research and start learning a little bit about their target audience. And as soon as they get first 2-3 pieces of useful information, there's some sort of pattern that is reappearing, they suddenly are ready to go and pursue it. And these types of people have a very low risk aversion, which means that they are able to gather the courage within themselves to act on minimal level of information. Now, the opposite of this would be high risk aversion. So highly risk averse people are the people who would do all their research and they would gather all their information. And they get to the point where they are not learning anymore. Everything they are learning, all the new information, is just confirming what they already know, but they are not able to pursue it. They are not able to go to that next stage, the action, which is actually going to be able to help them gather more information, a different type of information, a different variety of information. Is going to enrich the overall understanding of what is happening and help them progress, right? Because as we were saying, this is all about the progress. So this type of person would then come across to the low risk averse person as, oh, you're just overthinking it. And it's rightly so, right? So you want to be somewhere in the middle. You want to gather all the relevant information, all the different categories of that information, and enough information within each of those buckets until you stop learning. And when you stop learning and you start seeing that next action clearly, then you are moving into the overthinking category. So this is where you can think to yourself, have I learned enough? Am I just jumping into this too early based on basic patterns of information, but maybe there is more? The risks in doing this, so the risks for low risk averse people, are that you might learn something new later on when you are already in progress with your business, and you might not be able to integrate it, and your business will be affected for a very long period of time, irreversible sometimes. The risks for highly risk averse people are that some of these ideas will die, so they are never able to pursue their ideas further. So you want to, as I said, you want to be somewhere in the middle. If you found this video helpful or this is something that you are experiencing, please let me know in the comments, and otherwise I'll see you in the next one.